welcome to my kitchen. My name is Jimena, and today we are going to be making Manjar Blanco de Calabazas, also known as Lancmange of Gourds. Today's ingredients are gourds, almond milk, sugar, and rose water. So gourds are native to the southern US. They grow really well in warm and tropical weathers, and for today we are going to be using a sweet dumpling gourd, but you can use any kind with this recipe. Almond milk first appeared in 12th century Salerno, but it is thought to be a religiously motivated European innovation because Christians were barred from consuming milk during Lent and some other holidays, and so they used this to replace it. Sugar is thought to come from North India during 1500 to 500 BC. It is derived from sugarcane, and it was brought to the New World by Christopher Columbus on his second voyage in 1493. Rose water is from the Middle East, and it was used for many purposes, not just medicine, but also for food. So today we will be starting the recipe by peeling the gourd. The recipe indicates that you should use a tender gourd. Again, any kind that's peelable is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and peel this gourd now. So you want to go ahead and scoop out all the seeds. The recipe indicates to scrape the gourd until the inside is white. This is obviously going to be different depending on the type of gourd you're using, but what you're really trying to do is get most of this hair looking stuff out of it. So once you have your insides peeled, we're going to go ahead and chop them into pieces. I just find this size makes for a faster boil. And then we are going to take our gourd bits and put them into boiling hot water. We're going to go ahead and leave them in there for probably about 15 minutes, and when they're done we'll go ahead and drain them and we'll move on to the next step. So now that our gourds are cooked, I'm going to drain the water out of them, and because according to the recipe gourds are by nature water, we are also going to squeeze a bunch of water out of them, but first I'm going to drain this water out. So in order to drain the excess water out of the gourds, we're going to put them in a cheesecloth. And again, since they are, according to this recipe, almost all water, we're going to go ahead and squeeze out a whole bunch of excess water until there's sort of like a puree feeling. So once the excess water is drained out, we're going to put it back in the pan, and again, according to the recipe, there are no measurements, because since gourds are mainly water, once you squeeze out a lot of the excess water, the amount of gourd left over is going to change from gourd to gourd, from different type of gourd, from the size of the gourd, etc. So you then have to sort of eyeball it as a chef and add the almond milk, the sugar, and the rose water in accordance to the amount of gourd that you have available. The rose water, I did find a recipe that had measurements, and even that recipe had way too much rose water, so I would suggest, if using it at all, using a very tiny bit and not putting it in twice. So what I'm going to do is put this back on a low heat. I'm going to continue to mash it. I'm going to add some of the almond milk, some of the sugar, a tiny dash of rose water in this case, and then we will go ahead and prepare it once that's complete. Now the Lancmange of Gourds, or Manjar Blanco de Calabazas, appears to look like a puree of sorts. So we're going to plate it. In small serving bowls. And then we're going to cast, according to the recipe, more sugar on top. And it requests casting more rose water on top. However, we're not going to do that because, again, the rose water is extremely intense. So given the current technologies of today, if I was making this recipe and writing it up in a cookbook, I would say to blend it in a food processor and then strain it, because it would take out some of the grittiness. This recipe calls for beating the gourds as if they were hard gourds, but since we have technological capacities to beat things for us to a better extent and to strain them, that's what I would do. And again, just using less of the rose water, which perhaps in today is probably a lot more stronger than it used to be, since previously the methods of making it were probably different, but the rose water of today is seemingly very strong in everything I've ever had in it food-wise. So that is our recipe of Manjar Blanco de Calabazas, or Lancmange of Gourds. Thank you for cooking with us.